Good morning, everyone. Apologies about that. Slight technical issue on my side. So today's lesson, kind of following on the theme of rotation. So we've looked at different aspects of rotation. We've looked at turning the head. We've looked at maybe this kind of rotation of the trunk. And then we've also gone into rotating the arms. So hopefully you're feeling this kind of developing sense of spirals in the body. And this is something that I was talking about with Tai Chi yesterday, that, there's this sense that things, that forces don't move in straight lines as we use the body in different ways. Good morning, Simone. Thanks for staying with it. Apologies for the technical issue. So yeah, this sense of force transmission, for example, when we're pushing something, if you were to push the ball with your arm, there isn't a kind of a linear movement to it. It's actually a rotational force that comes all the way traveling through the joints. And if you think about how the kind of the skeleton connects into each part of the skeleton connects into each other, there's some sense of the organization of each joint and each bone that aids this sense of rotation. And this is something that we really feel when we're walking. So as we're walking, there's this kind of, excuse me, gentle rotation from one side to the other. So as you lift up, this is not a good morning. So as you lift up one side of the foot and you bring it down, there's a sense of rotation that comes all the way up through the leg. And then as you place that foot back down and place it back on the ground, it's like the opposite aspect of rotation. So rotation in the other direction. So that's kind of what I want to explore in this lesson. So when you're ready, I'd like you to find a comfortable place to sit. And in sitting, the thing I'd like you to do is just have both feet on the floor. And as you sit there, obviously take a moment for yourself, settle into the comfort or the support of the chair. Yeah, the hay fever's kind of come back a little bit this last week. So as you sit there with your feet on the floor, just notice kind of where, like if for example, you had some sand underneath your feet and you were to lift up both of your 2 feet, where would the imprint be left? Which parts of the foot would be represented on the floor? And as you kind of sense into that sense of like where's in contact, maybe you can kind of work through your toes, feel which of the toes are in contact with the floor, where on the ball of the toes, so the ball of the big toe all the way across to the ball of the little toe, where's that in contact with the floor? And then as you kind of travel back in the foot, where's the kind of the sense of contact? Where do you feel it lifting away from the ground? And where do you feel it touching the ground? This is a particularly interesting thing to do with the feet, I think, because if you've ever had an opportunity to look on the bottom of your sole and notice that the wear is never uniform, so our feet are organized in specific ways, different for each of us. And if you look on the sole of your foot, you can see like, what's my tendency? Do I maybe internally rotate or externally rotate? So as you're sitting here now, we're not doing any walking, we're not putting any load through the legs. Just feel where your feet are in contact. And then what I'd like you to do is just begin very gently by lifting the inside edge of the right foot. You just lift it a tiny amount and then you place it back down. Okay, so it's really a small movement. Imagine that someone's kind of wanting to slide a piece of paper underneath your foot, and then you're just going to place it back down on the ground. So lift it up, the person slides a piece of paper in, put it back down. lift it up, piece of paper gets slid out, put it back down. So it's a very small movement, not a big movement. And maybe you can feel as you kind of rotate your foot in this way, what does that do to the lower leg? Can you feel that in the ankle, in the bones of the ankle? Maybe you could even feel it in the knee. Good. Place that foot back on the ground, and then just try the same thing with the left foot. So as you rotate the left, so the big toe side, just slightly enough that you can slide paper in. Just rotate that left foot and just notice the difference between this side and the first side. So as you move your foot, good. Just do it a number of times. Place it down, take a little rest, lift it again. And notice how your big toe comes off the floor. Does your big toe come off the floor? Does it stay on the floor? So what I'd like you to do now is just see if you can leave your big toe touching the floor. And maybe that restricts the amount of internal rotation that you feel. But see if you can leave your big toe touching the floor and just kind of rotating the foot so the inside edge comes off the floor. And again, on the left side, as you do that, notice what's happening in your ankle. Maybe you could even notice what's happening in your heel. And does the movement come up and affect the knee? Is there some sense of, you can feel what that's doing inside the knee? Good. Take a rest. So then with the right foot now, just begin to curl your big toe underneath your foot. So as if you're kind of painting a line on the floor with your big toe, and just move very, very slowly backwards and forwards as if you're kind of like drawing the toe back underneath the foot and then taking it away. And it may well be that the rest of your foot comes with the big toe. Just do it slowly. See if you can kind of like draw in the big toe, drawing it across the floor as if you're maybe painting a line. Good. Just do that a number of times and notice how the foot changes shape, maybe what happens in the ankle. Good. And then go back to this movement of lifting the inside edge of the foot, the inside edge of the right foot, so the big toe side lifting away from the floor. But see if now you can keep your big toe on the floor as you do this movement. And as you do that movement and you keep the big toe on the floor, can it also slide back towards you so that the outside edge of the foot stays on the floor? And you're just sliding up the big toe towards you, letting the foot rotate, and then taking it back away from you. Do it very slowly, very gently. And as you make that movement, sliding your big toe back towards you, kind of rotating the inside edge of the right foot, what's happening to your knee? Is your knee kind of facilitating that movement? Is there some movement in the knee as well? Or is the knee staying still? Try doing it both ways. try doing that same movement, keeping the knee still. Is it possible to rotate your foot and draw your big toe towards you, keeping the outside edge of the foot on the floor if you keep your knee still? Or does it require you in some way to let your knee come out to the side? So now try it, letting your knee come out to the side. Notice, does that make it an easier process to kind of slide the big toe up and slide it away if you let the knee move? Good. And then take a rest with the right foot. And begin to do the same thing on the left foot. So if you want, you can just a few times kind of slide the big toe up, keeping the knee straight, just to feel that you can kind of curl the toes underneath the foot. Just do it a couple of times. Nice and slowly. Making it a reversible movement so that you could stop at any point in the movement and go backwards or forwards. Good. Once you've done that a couple of times, see if you can begin to leave the outside edge on the floor as you draw up the inside edge, painting a line with the big toe on the floor. So I hope this is making sense. If anyone's confused, please put something in the comments. But it's like you're drawing up the inside arch of the foot. And as you draw up the inside arch of the foot, what happens to the knee on the left side? And if you try a few times with the knee held still, so it's not moving, does that make it more possible for you to kind of lift the arch, keeping the big toe on the floor? Or is it easier if you allow your knee to move out to the side as you do it? Good. Now what I'd like you to do is take a rest for a moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to do that movement with both feet at the same time. So if anyone's unclear, say something, please, because it's difficult to describe this without demonstration. So what I'm looking for is the inside arch of the foot. So this is the big toe as an example, is kind of lifted upwards as I rotate. As I rotate my foot, this inside edge is lifted up. And the thumb, or the big toe, can stay on the floor at the same time. Yeah, great. Yeah, so when you're ready, please begin to do that with both feet at the same time. And as you do it with both feet at the same time, just feel that both knees can move out to the side as you allow this kind of drawing up of the inside arch on both feet. So with the drawing up of the arch, see if both feet operate at the same speed. If kind of both inside edges of the foot are as intelligent as the other. Or is one slightly kind of more clumsy, lags behind a little bit? And can you feel the same thing in the knees? So as you lift up the inner arch and let the knees come out to the side, is one knee moving easier to the side than the other knee? And maybe one knee kind of like a little jumpy in its movement, less coordinated. So as you do this movement and you kind of feel this sense of like curling up of the feet and that having an effect on the knees as well. See if you can notice if there's something happening in the junction between the leg and the pelvis. Is there some sense of rotation happening all the way up the leg? Good. Okay, take a little rest. So again, if that's unclear, then just write in the comments and I'll explain more. But I think that's getting there. So just a few times in this sitting position, just without turning the feet, take your knees to the side, both at the same time, and bring them back into the middle. And just feel kind of what movement is available as you take the knees to the side and bring them back to the middle. Kind of what's the available movement. Good. And as you take your knees to the outside, do you feel that the inside edges of your feet lift naturally? Great. Okay. So then take a rest. And what I'd like you to do is just begin to notice your in-breath. And as you breathe in, allow some sense of expansion happening in your lower belly. So you could feel that in some way your lower belly is like a balloon. And as you breathe in, it fills up that balloon. And your belly comes out, allowing your abdomen to kind of come out with the in-breath. Okay, so just try it a few times. It can be very gentle, doesn't need to be a kind of harder form of breathing. Just feeling that you could allow the belly to expand as you breathe in and contract as you breathe out. And just do it a few times. And notice as you do it, is there some impetus if you allow the belly to come out and you allow the belly to come back in as you breathe out? Is there some impetus that you can feel on the knees? Would it make sense for you to allow your knees to open at the same time as you breathe in and fill your belly? Just try it. And then as you breathe out, you can let the knees come back together and just play with that a few times. Coordinating the movement of the breath with the movement of the knees. See if you can get the timing so that the breathing and the knee movement is kind of concordant. It's happening together. Both the inwards movement of the breath, taking the knees out, and the outward movement of the breath, letting the knees come back in. Good. And then can you begin to tie back in, keep the breathing happening? Can you begin to tie back in the sliding of the toes on the floor? So the big toe kind of drawing up towards you, lifting the inner arch as you breathe in, filling your belly. And then as you breathe out, letting everything come back down. And just do that movement a few times. See if you can coordinate the timing all the way through the lower body. As you breathe in, letting the belly expand. As the belly expands, letting the knees widen. As the knees widen, letting the inside arch of the foot be drawn up towards you. And then think through the kind of reverse steps, so that you could initiate that same movement from the curling of the toe. Feeling that everything kind of coordinating with the in-breath. And then everything down with the out-breath. And just make it easy. Okay, and there's one last thing that I'd like to kind of add into to the process, and this is kind of based on or this is an idea taken from a lesson that I did recently. Um, that as you kind of make that internal rotation of the feet, as you allow your knees to widen and you let your belly fill, can you also at the same time contract your bum muscles? And I hope that that's an appropriate thing to say on Facebook. If it's not, apologies. I think it is. But what I want to do is just kind of see if you can feel that as you breathe in and you take everything, kind of widen everything out, what happens at that point if you contract your bum muscles and then let them go. And maybe it takes you a moment to kind of find it, and that's okay. Just try it. A friend of mine recently was talking to just going to give birth in a month, and there's a part of me that would love to teach a series of lessons around the kind of pelvic floor health, the pelvis, as a way of kind of helping to prepare for a process that is pretty intense, but can be made easier the more we understand our pelvis. So just see as you're doing this movement, can you feel that the pelvis is kind of coordinated with this whole movement? And as you clench the buttocks slightly, that there's some sense of the pelvis kind of opening. The bones of the pelvis, if you can see at the back here. So you've got the sacrum, and then you've got the ilium on either side, right? And the connection between the sacrum and the ilium is actually not completely fixed. So it's not a solid. It's like it's cartilage. It's very strong cartilage, so there's not much movement, but there is potential for movement. So that as you do this movement, maybe you can feel that there's some sense of this part of the pelvis, this kind of outer wing here, kind of widening slightly, kind of making space at the front of the pelvis. Good. And take a little rest. Yeah, exactly. Your knees come further away. Good. And then just come back to the breathing again. So make it really soft, really subtle. And see if you can kind of feel that as you breathe in, you let your abdomen expand, that there's some sense of the pelvis kind of opening. As it opens, this can kind of make an internal rotation, an external rotation of the leg, letting the knees come wider, and then the inside edge of the feet coming off the floor. But make it really small. See if you can make it so subtle, so kind of discreet, that it's just happening as a result of the breathing. Maybe you could feel that it's like a very kind of organic manifestation of the breath. Like it kind of makes sense for the system in some way, that as it breathes in and expands the belly, that the knees come apart, the abdomen comes forwards, and the inside edges of the feet very gently lift away from the floor. And then as you breathe out, feel that the inside edges of the feet can come back to the floor, make contact with the floor. So then you've kind of got this dynamic relationship between the floor and your feet. So each in-breath is this kind of spiraling movement all the way through the legs, lifting away from the floor. And each out-breath is this spiraling movement down the legs, making contact again with the floor. And maybe you can kind of feel for yourself the relationship between the pelvis, the pelvic floor, the breathing, and the movement of the legs. I'll just give you a moment more to kind of explore that, because I think it's a pretty important subject, and maybe not one that's talked about, thought about much, or practiced much. So, and then just begin to exaggerate the movement slightly. So let the knees come slightly wider, draw up the toes. Can you make a slightly more extreme version of that movement? Doesn't need to be strong. You don't need to kind of push it, but it's like, before it was very subtle. We were just moving with the breath, but now could you exaggerate the movement? Take the knees slightly wider, draw the big toe kind of back, and really increase the arch on the foot. Okay, and then let that go. And just come back to your feet being on the floor. And just check in with yourself, see how you're feeling, see how comfortably you're sitting on the chair. And as you sit there and notice your connection, your feet's connection with the ground again, if you think about this kind of imprint that your feet would leave on sand, has it changed slightly? Through doing that lesson, through kind of lifting the arch, bringing the arch back to the floor, feeling this sense of rotation all the way up into the pelvis and the spine, is there some sense that your feet have changed their relationship with the floor? Good. And maybe you feel your breathing's a bit different as well. So it'd be great to get some comments to hear how that was. If people are interested in lessons to do with the pelvis and the pelvic floor, I think I can teach one of those this weekend on Saturday. So um, I think I'm gonna put that in the diary. So if anyone's interested in that, the lesson on Saturday lunchtime, 1 p.m. till 2 p.m., will be this kind of relationship with the pelvis and the pelvic floor, and breathing. So if that's an interesting subject to you, or you just want to come and have a kind of really nice, comfortable, relaxing lesson, that's Saturday at 1 p.m. I also teach Qigong on Sunday mornings, and that's 9:45 till 11. And tomorrow's lesson, I want to teach a kind of concept that comes from that particular system. And that's well, it's not necessarily from there, but the concept of the Dantian, which is an energy center in the body. And what I want to do is kind of tie in everything that we've done this week into this kind of central ability to rotate. So hope to see you tomorrow. That lesson, without any technical issues, will be live at 11 in the morning. And apologies for the start this morning. That was fun. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.